Well, hello, and thank you for joining us at Grace at Night. My name is Ben, and today we have Marie, or is it Marie Claire? I don't even know. What do you want people to know you by?
Either one is fine.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call you Scott. So, you're awesome. You just completed an internship here, so I know you've gotten to know a lot of people. You're about to be a junior at Texas State, and you're a film and theater nerd like me. That's awesome. So tell me what got you into creating visual media.
Sure. Well, I definitely did not intern here.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
just here all the time.
You're just here all the time.
Yeah,
and
my mom works here. So.
Right, and you serve on the worship team.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of know you too.
With film, I think it started just because I did theater since 6th grade all the way through till I graduated high school. Which I did because when I was really young, I wanted to be a singer. I was like, I want to sing, but I was really nervous to sing in front of people. One of my earliest core memories is singing Jingle Bells in my house, and this was probably before kindergarten, so I was probably less than 5. Earliest core memory, and my parents applauded me because they're supportive parents, and I was like, I don't like that. Why did you applaud? Just pretend like I'm not here. So I was like, I'm never singing in front of people again. And then later down the line, I was like, you know what? Let me take theater, so maybe that'll help with stage fright or whatever the thing is. And yeah, that happened. And then in high school, I was like, I'm going to be a math teacher. I liked theater, but I loved math and I wanted to teach. And that's what I thought I was going to study in college, was either education or math or something STEM related. And then COVID happened. And I was like, I actually don't understand math anymore because I was on online classes. But I still had rehearsals and I loved it. And I was like, maybe this is what I should be doing instead.
Yeah.
So I kind of took a chance on film, and I'd never done film before college. And I went into it hoping that I would like it, and I did.
That's
so
awesome.
That's where I'm at now.
Are you looking to become like a director, producer, actor? Like which branch of film are you thinking?
Sure. Like when I started, I only had acting experience. So I was like, okay, maybe acting, but I also didn't want to do acting just because of the lifestyle that tends to come with it. So I just went into it having zero idea what I wanted. And I love to direct. I've found that out. I've produced a lot of short films at school, so I've gotten pretty good at producing, or maybe not good at it, I don't know. But I've done it a couple of times, so I know what's going on.
Yeah.
Love to direct. It's probably one of my favorite things to do.
Awesome.
But, I don't really know what to do with that outside of college.
I mean, who does, right?
Right.
Speaking of, you mentioned the lifestyle thingy, and I'm not sure if I'm interpreting it correctly, but I remember when I moved out to LA for the first time after leaving staff here, a lot of people were like, you're going to become one of those people, Ben, like, LA is full of sinners and whatever. Yeah. And then I actually interviewed Bo and Kelly Brotherton. I don't know if you know them, on my last 2 episodes ago. And Kelly Brotherton, they used to come to Grace. There was one day she looked me in the eye and she goes, Ben, if you don't go to LA, who will?
Who will?
And it's just like, oh, that's a great point. So I encourage you to, wherever the Lord leads, do it, go for it, because he's going to put you exactly where you're supposed to be. But that's cool. All right. So you like directing. Top 1 to 3 directors, depending on who you can remember right now.
See, I feel like I probably don't know well enough, but right now I'm gonna say Guillermo del Toro because I love his creative process. I think he's very vision oriented. He has a vision and he just knows really well how to develop a story and to take every aspect of it and make something out of it.
Yeah, I love The Shape of Water. That was a cool
It's one of my favorite movies. Yeah, it's beautiful. Everyone tells me that's so weird. Why, like,
it is a weird movie, but
falling
it's
in love
cool.
with a fish. I'm like, y'all don't understand.
Yeah.
Like,
no, it's really
just
good.
it's cinematically gorgeous, and the soundtrack is phenomenal.
Yeah. How do you feel as I'm assuming you're a Gen Zer, about like, so I'm old enough to remember when Netflix started.
Oh yeah.
I was in high school, I think, and Netflix was just a mail service DVD thing. Okay, it looks like you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I didn't have it, but some of my friends did, and so like they would, I don't know how it worked. They would like just mark something, mail it in, and then Netflix would send a DVD, which is crazy. But what do you feel about like the I would say conflict between streaming and the digital media, and then like analog, like going to a movie theater, experiencing. For me personally, I don't watch any shows. I don't have a TV. I don't watch any shows. I don't watch movies. And unless it's on a plane or in a movie theater.
Okay.
And I love watching movies on planes. And I love watching movies in the theater because I feel like when you're creating something for the big screen, you do it with intention, and what you create is going to be different than what you're creating when you're filming on a small screen for a small screen. So all that being said, what's your take on content and how it's distributed digitally, analog, theater? What do you love and what do you hate about it?
I love the accessibility of it. I love that. So I do have a TV. So I love
most people do.
I love getting to be at home and, if I missed, I wanted to see this movie in the theater and now it's out of the theater. I can watch it on Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever. That's annoying, I think, is that there's just so many streaming services. And that's why everyone's sharing their passwords because we're not going to
be
pay
allowed
for
anymore.
10 different streaming platforms when there's one platform you only got for one show, or you only want to watch one movie that's only on this platform. So for example, Apple TV, we don't have any Apple TVs in our house. We don't have anything Apple at all. So anything that's only on Apple TV, I'm not watching. Sure. So if anything comes out that I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, it's on Apple TV. Well, it sucks to suck. Not watching it.
When you say when you miss a movie in theaters, like, do you feel like the experience diminishes at all because you're watching it on TV instead of on a theater screen?
I think it depends how much I wanted to see it. Like, if I'm really into that movie, if I know, this is a director I know is really good, or this is just a movie that, it's like the sequel to a movie that has a lot of nostalgic value, then I want to go see it in the theater. But I don't know, before college too, I didn't like the movie theater. I didn't like going to theaters. I didn't like watching movies with friends. My mentality was, if I'm spending time with you, I don't want to be silent for 2 hours. I don't want that. But now I have a newfound appreciation for it, and I'm like, this is great. We're experiencing the same art together, and we can talk about it after.
Wow, that is such a college student mindset.
I was like, this is great. I love this. But I think though you're so right with what you were saying. When you know that this is going to be in theaters, you design the entire movie differently. You're going to choose what shots you're going to do differently, knowing, this is on the big screen. I had a teacher tell me once, we'll tell the class, it wasn't just me, but she told our class, close-ups are so overused. And ever since she said that, I can't unsee it, because there's so many things, especially with streaming services, when you watch a show that was meant for a streaming platform, and you play it on a big screen, you notice it way more. You're like, why are all these like
everyone's faces are so big?
Yeah, versus something that was designed to be on the big screen, and that's gonna be less common. So you go to the movie theater, and there's way less close-ups based off of what was this movie intended for, where is it trying to go, who's making it. That's a big deal too. If it's like Christopher Nolan with Oppenheimer just came out,
have you seen it?
Yes.
I have not.
Cinematically gorgeous. I will say that. It's a little long, but cinematically gorgeous. But if you're someone like Christopher Nolan, you can do whatever you want. They're not gonna question you. Versus other people who aren't as famous, aren't as known, so they will tell them, no, just do all the close-ups because it's gonna end up on streaming platforms, even if they don't want it.
That feels like, I don't know, I feel like I would be insulted by that to some degree. Wow. Okay. So cool. So junior. So you got 2 years of college left. We were speaking earlier. It took 6 years for me to graduate college. So no rush.
Sweet.
What are your aspirations after college? Like, have you thought about it?
Yeah, just like life in general.
Life in general.
Yeah. Career wise, I have no idea. My plans for a career have changed so many times, so I don't really know where that's going. I would love to continue with worship no matter where I'm at or what I'm doing. That to me is kind of a given. Like, no matter where I am, I want to stay in this worship ministry and wherever doing whatever, and obviously wherever the Lord calls me to be, that's where I'll try to be, at least. I say I'll be there, but we're human. Sometimes we go the wrong way. But that's the plan. I want to stay in ministry, have a family. I want a family. I think that's like a conflict with like doing film too, is that every professor I have, every time you ask, family life, they're always like, no. They're like, it's really hard to find a balance if you want to do film for real, full time, and having a family. So that's kind of my main reason for not knowing what I want to do with my degree, because I love filmmaking. It's really fun. I love storytelling. It's all really, really fun. And learning the craft and all the things that it takes to make a film or make anything, you're just like, wow, I want to do that too. Yeah. Then it's just that balance of okay, do I really want this for the rest of my life? Do I want this short time? Would short time work? What am I doing? What genre are you going into? What industry? Because film is one whole big industry, but there's subsections to it.
Oh, absolutely.
Depending where you're working, like streaming. Are you working with streaming platforms? Working at Netflix is different than working for, a Universal Pictures movie.
Well, let me tell you this. I would say enjoy it every single day. And don't worry about what's to come, because you're gonna spend all this time worrying about it, and it'll take you out of it. And so, fear is the worst way to decide what you're gonna do later on. I think that God has better ways of showing you where He wants you, other than scaring you, right? Actually, I don't think He's trying to scare you at all. I think there's levels of rationality, sure, and things that make common sense, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to work in film and if you want a family, I believe that God probably placed those desires in your heart to some extent to be used for His will. And, you can do it. Like, why not, right?
Yeah.
Especially nowadays, like, the whole idea, and this kind of goes back to Gen Zers a little bit, the whole idea of, like, what is work? What are obligations? It's a totally, like, I feel, generally speaking, when I speak to someone in your generation, like the idea of a 9 to 5 is like outdated to you. It feels outdated, For me, it's like a regular thing. It doesn't feel like a required thing. I feel like for my parents' generation, it was like a required thing. That's just how you lived your life as an adult. For my generation, it's like, oh, you get to choose if you want a 9 to 5 or not, but it's still like a lot of people do it. And I feel like y'all's generation, you're starting to veer away. It's like, I don't need to work 8 hours a day to survive. I only need to work 2 and I'll survive. And then the other hours, I'm going to do what I want, that, to live a fulfilling life. And like, I don't see anything wrong with that, like, why not? So that being said, if you want to pursue film and you want to pursue a family, like, by all means, go for it. We need people like you to lead and go for it and show us how it's done. So
Sweet.
Always go for it, unless it is extremely irresponsible, which honestly, like, sometimes that might be the case, but you should still go for it anyways, because you never know. Yeah. Well, cool. So that's your art. That is your passion. Any other hobbies, any other things, anything that you've been just trying to do, but not like professionally or
something. So I haven't even started this one, but I really want to get into I don't know if woodworking or carpenting is the right word, but I'm like, man, why do I need to buy a table that's $400? That sounds so not. I'll look at the table and I'm like, man, I could probably make that for less. So I really want to get into it, but I think just starting it's probably okay, we have a saw in my house. It's in the garage.
Just one?
It's just one.
Like a hand saw?
I don't know what kind of saw it is, but it has the platform on the bottom and then the round one where you can go and...
Yeah, that's a table saw.
So we have
that's
one.
Nice. Yeah.
And I'm like, I should take it because no one uses it in our house. And so my mentality is, okay, I'm going to move out. I should totally take it. I have this balcony in my new apartment that I'm going to move into that's really big.
You're just going to put the saw on the balcony.
I should just put it on the balcony. Awesome. And I can just buy whatever the size of wood that I need, just cut it and just do my own thing. I should totally do it, but I know they would never let me take the saw because they're like, you're gonna hurt yourself.
Just go buy your own saw.
But I looked up different types of saws, and some of them are hundreds of dollars. And
hey,
I was like, ooh.
Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist. I never buy anything new.
I love Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah,
it's the only reason I have Facebook. I don't have a profile picture.
Exactly,
I don't have any posts. Nothing.
Have you heard of IKEA hacking? Do you know what that is? Like, people they buy different sets from IKEA, like those tables I have right there.
Sweet.
And you make your own things out of them. Because, it comes with, parts and stuff. So, one general example, IKEA sells, kitchen countertops. Just like the butcher blocks, it's really nice wood. But they'll turn those into desks for example, instead of putting it on your kitchen. Or I've seen people take like IKEA has this bookshelf ladder thing, and then they like take different shelves or something and switch out the shelves and put them and use it as like a bathroom organizer.
That's awesome.
I don't know. So like that's something you could potentially do without tools, like create your own furniture, buy used IKEA things, and then like, you know, Frankenstein them together.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. Tell me a little bit about your heart for worship. Like what do you feel like worship is as a Gen Zer? I just want to get your honest opinion. How do you think it's changed, and where do you see it going?
Yeah, I think worship is just a way to connect and communicate with God. I remember I went to a church once where the pastor was saying, you know, people connect with God differently. And one of the, like, some of the big three ways are prayer, reading scripture, and worship. And for a lot of people, there's going to be one that just stands out the most. Like, we should do all three. Everyone should do all three. Like, pray, you know, be in scripture and worship. But there's usually one that just stands out to you more. And for me, that's worship. I'm very much like, love music. Yeah. And I remember, like, I had this day where, well, actually, let's take it back. I went to a Baptist church one time not one time. I went to a Baptist church for a while when I was younger. And it's because my whole family went. And so worship was very much just standing there and singing, and everything was really just, you know, mellow kind of vibe.
Those Baptists. And
I was like, okay, so I'm like 6 years old, you know, in the congregation, like, this is not fun. You know, I'm like, I'm not vibing. I'm just here. And, you know, it was a thing where every Sunday I did not want to go to church. I was like, it's just going to be boring. I'm not going to like it. But I went because I didn't have a choice. I was like 6, you know, so whatever. And then we went from there to here. And here, we were here for about 2 years before they launched North Campus. And so we went to North Campus because they were looking for people who spoke Spanish, and my whole family speaks Spanish. So we went over there, and, you know, I remember seeing people worship over there, and the culture and the environment, it was so drastically different from what I'd seen at the Baptist church. There were people raising their hands all the time, singing really loudly, even if they weren't good. There were people that would, like, go to the front and, like, you know, just kind of vibe. And I was just like, oh my goodness, you know, this looks more fun, you know? And I was like, this is great. And I'm growing up in that environment. And my parents too, like, they'd raise their hands, and I was like, I don't know what this raising hands business is about, but like, I should try it. And I spent multiple weeks, months being like, I kind of want to raise my hands, but I don't know. Like, I'm afraid people are going to look at me. Like, I don't want anyone to look at me and think, oh, she's being spiritual. You know, I was like, I don't want this. No. But eventually I was like, I'm just going to do it. And I did it, and I was like, this is literally fine. No one's paying attention to me. Everyone's in their own little business talking to God right now, and I'm just raising my hands, and it feels great. I don't know what the point of it is, but it feels great. So I'm just gonna keep doing it. And so that's kind of where that started, with me, like, being more like open with, oh, like, this is actually, I kind of like this, never mind. And past that, I've always loved music. I'm very much like, I will play music all the time type of person. If I'm cleaning, music's playing. If I'm just chilling, music's playing. You know, I play music a lot. And so music feeds into what I hear all the time. And I think we need to be careful with what we're listening to and how we're taking care of those things. So I would listen to music all the time, very much just general, like, pop or like 80s music, just whatever. And I was like, you know, I should listen to more worship music. Like, I should filter this out. I should be more aware of what I'm putting into my body and my soul in that regard. So I would try to listen to worship music, and my big thing that I realized was, this is not fun for me. I'm not enjoying it. So I was like, why am I not enjoying it? And I thought, okay, if I'm listening to the, you know, pop music on the radio that's going on, I'm dancing to it. And I'm vibing. I'm like, I'm having a good time. I'm in my room. I'm by myself. I'm pumping it, and I'm living my best life. Then I play a worship song, and I just sit still. And I'm like, why do I do that? Why can't I just dance the same way that I'm dancing to the other stuff? And I was like, well, I don't see people doing that. I don't see people just, you know, is that disrespectful? Like, I don't know if that's wrong, if that's against something. But I just started doing that by myself in private. And I was like, I don't think there's anything wrong with this, because it's God. Like, He just wants to connect with me. He wants to spend time with me. I want to be in his presence, and he wants me to be there. You know, so it's like, okay, he just wants me to be here. And I'm just having a good time. I'm having fun. And, you know, we're supposed to have that childlike faith. You know, it's having fun. It's okay to have fun. I think when we become adults, and, you know, not that I'm that much of an adult, but, you know, people don't say fun a lot anymore. People are like, it's not supposed to be fun. And it's, you know, I think it can be fun. Yeah. I think there is the aspect of discipline. Even if it's not fun, you know, sometimes you just got to do it. Sometimes you don't want to sit down and read the word, but you got to do it. You just know, okay, you know, I don't feel like it right now, but that's where, like, discipline comes in. But I think there's also the aspect of fun. You can have fun. You know, you're around the people that you're friends with because you have fun with them. You're friends with them because you're like, oh, I have these memories. I can be myself. I can blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. Like, God created you. He knows how you want to have fun. He knows the things that you like to do and the way that you were designed to be, because he designed you to be that way. So he knows that if it's dancing, even if you're not good, I'm not good at dancing at all. I've never taken a dancing class. I'm just not good at it at all. But he knows I love to dance anyway. He's happy with that. And he just wants to spend time with me. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's that way with everyone. Like, God knows what your fun is. He knows if your fun is dancing to music, or if your fun is worship's playing and you're laying on the floor. He knows if fun for you is like, man, I could just read chapter after chapter right now, or just like sitting down, just praying and just having a whole conversation. He knows what your fun is. And I think sometimes we forget that fun is okay. Like, it's okay to have fun. You're not less spiritual. You're not doing anything wrong if it's just fun and God's chilling, you know, like, I don't know. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. I think that maybe fun hasn't necessarily been taken out of everything, but there's so much that is getting in the way of having fun. Maybe there's I'm not gonna say structure, but there's so much formality that sometimes gets in the way of, like, the simplest thing. Like, when we come to church to worship, we are worshiping God, and we're talking to him, and we're celebrating him, and we're giving him the praise that he deserves. We're just like, and that's like, I don't know, like, when you imagine what the Levites were doing, like, were they somber while they were, you know, like, and when you think about, like, I don't know, when I think music, like, if you didn't want to have some degree of fun or celebration, or, like, it wouldn't be music, it would just be like poetry. Yeah. Nothing against poets, like, you know, right? But like the element of music, and worship music in particular, like, takes it to another level. You do want to have fun. Like, it is something that is to be enjoyed. Like, I mean, I guess you could make music really unenjoyable, but, like, why? Right? So yeah, that's cool. So where do you see worship going then? Like, okay, so, like, taking the context of Grace Fellowship. Okay. All right. I mean, I would say we're fairly charismatic. We're not super charismatic in our worship, but, like, people raise their hands. We're kind of contemporary, whatever. But nothing to the degree of what happens on Thursday nights in the prayer room, right? Like, I still feel people are scared. Like, there's this fear. It's like, oh man, people could think I look crazy if I'm dancing. Like, and I don't think it's necessarily, maybe fear is not the right word, but it's like judgment. It's like, I feel like I'm not, or what's the right way to put this? Like, I don't want people thinking I'm weird, you know? And that's a dangerous thing. Like, if you're trapped by culture, really, if you're trapped by what you think other people think of you, I mean, that's just bad. Like, how, from your perspective, like, you know, what's the future of worship look like, you know, and I have a feeling it's moving more and more towards, like, what you desire, but, like, how do you see that change happening?
You know, when I went to Grace North Campus, a big thing that they would tell us when I went to youth group was lead by example. That was a huge thing that they would tell us. So I feel like that's probably what's gonna happen eventually, is more and more people are gonna be like, hey, that person's raising their hands, I kind of want to try it, and try it. Or that person's waving a flag, I kind of want to try it and then try it. And I think people will just try things. And I think what I hope what people will feel is and experience is the freedom in worship. Because, you know, as much as I say it's fun because it's freeing. Mm-hmm. And I think it's, you know, like you said, I think a lot of people are scared to look weird. And I'm like, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay. You know, it's that not wanting to be judged. Uh-huh. And I think you said that really well. And it's just kind of, I think that's why for me, like, theater kind of coexisted with me growing up because I've done it since I was like 12. Mm. And one thing I learned in theater was, okay, because I did acting, right? Mm. So one thing I learned was I can't be scared of what people are going to think of me when I'm doing this thing as a character, because if not, I'm holding back from the character and it's not truly that person. Like, I'm not going to do this well if I'm holding back. Mm. And I've just learned that applies all across the board in life. Like, if you're not fully invested in something, you're holding back. And so what are you holding back from? So when I see something like worship, I'm kind of like, I don't need to hold back from God, you know what I mean? You know, it's like, if I just want to like raise my hands, there's no issue with that. Like, right. It's okay. Like, why would I hold that back from the King of the universe? But it's so freeing. And so I think like what I hope for Grace Fellowship is that people will see it and feel like, let me try it. And I think it just kind of is contagious and it spreads. And so what happens Thursday nights where we're running around and we're waving flags and we're singing super loudly or whatever it is that we're doing, it's very freeing. It feels so free. You're in the presence of God and you can't help but feel free. So I remember this is a little off topic, but I went to a worship night recently with one of my friends in Houston. It was a young adults worship night. And she was like, you should come. So we went. And it was the biggest group of young adults I had seen together for worship, for anything God-related at all since I'd gone to a summer camp multiple years ago, which I don't even know how many years. Let's just say 5 because I don't remember. But it was the biggest amount of people in my age group that I've seen be together for that purpose. So I was like, this is crazy. And everyone just kind of stood there the whole time. And don't get me wrong, like sometimes you just stand there. And sometimes that's how you connect with the Lord. So there's no judgment if you sit there and that's how you connect in that music. There's no judgment if you just stand there and you're still. If that's how you connect, that's how you connect. No judgment whatsoever. But there is a thing sometimes where you look at a group of people that's such a large group and everyone's standing still and you can't help but wonder, is this because everyone's wanting to do this or because there are some people that want to and some people are you know, not wanting to look weird and don't want to be judged. And to me, what I got from that, I sat there and I was like, man, I feel like for me, it was me seeing that we as children of God, like, we can still be deceived. You know what I mean? We're not immune to that. So I was like, guys, we're free though. We're free. It's kind of, to me, it's like that visual of if I'm sitting in a jail cell and I've been here for so long and someone comes in and like takes off my chains and takes off my shackles, unlocks them, why would I stay there? Like I would stretch, you know, I would start be like, oh, I'm out of here. I'm going to get up. I'm going to move. And, you know, not everyone's a mover. That's okay. I'm a huge mover. So I move a lot. But, you know, it's just something that's good to try at least and see if you like that. Because for me, it's very freeing. And I used to not do that. And now I do it all the time. I move all the time because I'm like, wow, this is freedom. This is what freedom feels like. This is something that I wasn't doing before. And it's just like, you know, whenever you tell someone, oh, like, I believe in Jesus. There's freedom in Jesus. And, you know, Jesus is you know, we have the Holy Spirit within us, right? And that our walks with Jesus look differently. And there's going to be different things about each person that people will notice that, you know, fruits of the Spirit, they're going to be like, oh, that's different about you. What is that? And it's Jesus, right? Even if they don't know it. But there's things sometimes where I think, man, we're telling people that there's so much freedom in Jesus. Like, there's so much freedom in this life, but are we showing that we're free or not? So for me, like, worship is a big part where I'm like, I'm so free right now, and God is so great. Why would I not? Why would I not? You know, so it's just so fun and it's so freeing. So I'm like, yeah, like, if you want to think I'm weird, because that's, whatever. I'm free, and I know that I'm free, and I'm going to embrace my freedom in Christ because I can.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's so fun. I'm like, man, I just want people to try it. Like, you're free. You're free. You're free. The chains are
That's
gone.
That's awesome. It's so interesting because to try to wrap that all up in a nutshell, the idea of like, you shouldn't judge anyone, right? Mm-hmm. In my mind, it is ingrained as a thing where it's like, okay, you shouldn't judge anyone, so nobody do anything that's worthy of being judged. Mm-hmm. So like, don't be weird, right?
Yeah.
But for you, don't judge anyone means more like you're free to do anything you want. So there's nothing to judge, right? So it's more like you can do anything you want versus you shouldn't do anything you want, both yielding the same result, both yielding that you won't be judged or you shouldn't judge. But one way is out of fear and the other way is out of freedom.
Yeah.
And that's like brilliant. What? Like, whoa, that's really cool. And it's really cool hearing that from you, like from someone who's you know how young adults' brains don't fully develop until you're 26. You are not fully conscious as a human yet, but like you understand that deeply, clearly. So that's really awesome. What do you want to see come out of, like, where do you think churches will be in 5 years? Like, what do you want to see church become in the future when you're my age? I have my own thoughts on this, but I'm curious to hear what yours are.
I have no idea. I feel like I go to, especially when I go to school and I'm kind of church hopping because I don't really have a church over there. When I go to different churches, it just makes me realize how different every church is. So as a whole, I don't really know. Because sometimes I'll go to a church and I'm like, this is not for me. But there's people there that have great community and it's amazing for them, and they've witnessed what they've witnessed. And I'm like, that's amazing, but this is definitely not for me, because I don't know, but it's just, I don't know, as a whole I don't know. Maybe in 5 years I don't really know, but I do know the general direction I would love to see is just being free in worship. I think it's also just part of American culture, which culture everywhere is going to have its own differences, but we live in America, so I'm going to use that. But in American culture, you just, in general, you don't want to be judged. You don't want to do anything out of the ordinary, because you're like, oh, that people are gonna think I'm weird. But then again, it's like, oh, but I don't want to be like everyone else because I want to be different. But then at least for Gen Z people, it's like, oh, now you're a pick-me because you're different and you're doing something.
What?
A pick-me.
What's a pick-me?
Let me tell you. It's not a pick-me. If people will say a pick-me, if you're like, I know people try to use it specifically. It doesn't even matter. But a pick-me is kind of someone that's particularly seeking attention in a way that's, oh, I'm different than you. Okay. I'm different than you because, et cetera, whatever reason, X, Y, Z. And so people will be like, oh, you're such a pygmy, like, da-da-da. So sometimes I'm just chilling with my friends, and I'm like, man, like, I'm thinking to myself, the sky, the sunset right now, gorgeous. It's beautiful. But I'm like, bro, I don't even want to say this right now, because if I go, the sunset's beautiful, they're going to be like, oh, what, does she think she's the main character? Like, she's such a pygmy. So I'm like, you know what?
Whoa.
Maybe I should not say anything right now. But then there's other times where I'm like, you know what? I don't even care. The sky's beautiful. I want y'all to see it too. Yeah. And it just kind of depends on who you're hanging out with, right? But at least I know with Gen Z here, like a pick me is a whole deal. But I feel like, sometimes people are like, I want to be different, but not too different. So let me and that's where you're like, okay, like, what standards are we defining ourselves by? Like, where are we trying to live and why? Are you either go by the world standards or you go by God's standards? Who are you trying to please, right? And there's that whole, like, can't serve two masters. You just can't.
Right.
And I feel like that, as long as we live on this earth, will forever be a conflict for all of us, because sometimes we're like, it would be so easy if I just, like, did this, like, thing for the world and just, just acted normal. Sure. But sometimes it's like, we are set apart. We're called to be set apart. So you will just never be normal by the world standards, because God just called us to be set apart. Mm-hmm. So he's like, you are supposed to be different. You are supposed to be different. I designed you to be different from everybody else, and I'm asking you to walk differently so that people see me, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. So if you're normal, if you're doing what everyone else is doing, what's different? How are people gonna see God if you're doing everything that the world does and you're not walking different? I kind of forgot what the original question was. Oh, the church. But yeah, so I feel like in general, just worship. I wish people understood that, because sometimes I see it and I'm like, if you really understood like the freedom that you have right now, maybe this would look different. Or if you understood your identity in Christ, like why you were made, like who you were made to be, and how like that, the one song where it's like, no one else can love you like I love you. Like no one else can love God the way that you love God. Nobody. You are so uniquely designed that you just can't. When you're friends with people, friends come and go, but every single friend that you've had in your life is different because God designed them to be different. So every conversation you have is different. It's the same with God. When you communicate with God, it's different than when the next person does. So I don't know. It's just I would love to see that. And I think, you know, sometimes people just need some encouragement. Yeah. And I feel like Thursday nights for example, like here at Thursday nights is a great place because you feel encouraged because it's what most people are doing.
Right.
Most people are already jumping around, running around, so it doesn't feel weird for you to also jump and run around because other people are already doing it, and it's like the majority, if not, you know? Yeah. So it's just, I think sometimes we just need encouragement, especially when you're in such a large group. Like Grace Fellowship to me is pretty big, you know? So yes. I feel like sometimes we just need like spoken encouragement. You just need to remind people. It's good to remind people, hey, like, just quick reminder, guys. Like, audience of one is not just in the prayer center, you know? Like, this is our reverence to God. This is us like communicating with God, just being in His presence. And I think it's such a privilege that we get to do that together. It's awesome. Like, I'll be in my room and I'm like, yeah, like, no one else can love you. You know, and I'm chilling out. But then when you're with a group, it's like, wow, you feel like the unity in the body of Christ. You're like, wow, we're like all free, and we all know like we're free, and we're all just with God. It's like that taste of heaven thing that people talk about. It's, I don't know. So I would love to see that more. I would love to see like worship and just encouragement to people so that they understand like you're not supposed to like feel like people will judge you. It's like, just understand like this is a space where it's okay. It's okay to worship God freely. So I think sometimes just reminders. I would love to see like more encouragement towards that, and maybe just more worship nights in general. I'm thinking more, you know, yes, in worship, but also generally speaking, one of the coolest moments that ever happened here at Grace. I remember there was one Sunday when Jim was just preaching, and some dude on his bike rolls down the center aisle and just puts his bike on the prayer altar and just like kneels there with his helmet on. He was in like full bike outfit gear. And Jim just kept on preaching. And like, that's when I think freedom, that's what I think. Like, yeah, I think of all you young hippie people like dancing around and stuff. But I also think like the freedom to interrupt, the freedom to disrupt the pattern that's happening, you know, like, you know, I think it's really cool that Jim wasn't like, security, get this guy, you know, out of here. It's like, you know what, this guy was called to come, you know, pray at the prayer altar, and he's definitely having an encounter with God right now, and I'm just gonna let it happen, you know, I'm just gonna keep on, he's not bothering me, right? Yeah. And like, that is freedom, the ability to just like, it's like, you know, who cares really if someone interrupts the sermon, you know, maybe that moment was supposed to happen, and you just have to kind of be okay with it. And that's hard for a lot of people. It's just really unconventional, you know? And I don't know, I'm definitely someone who is favorable towards unconventionality and risk taking. Like, I love all of that. I generally will be biased towards that, and I know that clouds my judgment in a way, but you know, I think that if I don't know, when something happens that causes you to break out of routine, or things don't go the way that they're planned, in my life at least, I always see that in retrospect, like, oh, that's why that happened, you know, that's fine, that's why that happened, and like, I'm not gonna be bothered by that. Like, it always seems so much worse in the moment than it actually is. Wow. Okay, so heart for worship, you're a theater film person, you want to get into carpentry and woodworking. Tell me about college and the college experience, and what you had. What were you raised in the Katy area? Or? Yeah, like my whole life I've been in
okay, all right. So Yeah, and like I guess Texas State is it's still Texas, but like what was it like moving out of the house and like into a new city? It's a slightly more urban city, right, than Katy.
Yeah.
And like, what was your experience? What was your life experience? And what was like did you have any fears, homesickness? I kind of want to just hear your story.
Yeah. So I never got homesick. I had a lot of friends tell me, even if you're in state, even if you're only a few hours away, you're gonna get homesick. Never got homesick. I so badly wanted to get out of the house. I was like, I'm so done. I need to have my independence. I need to be out. Like, I just wanted to be away. I was like, I don't care where I end up, just away. I just need to be away. Like, my parents need to be like further away. You know, I was 18. I was like, I just need to be out of my house. And so I get out of my house. We go, you know, my parents help me move in. They drop me off and they're saying bye to me. They're like crying. And I was like, I'm not about to cry in front of my roommate. Like, you know, like, I don't even know this person, and the first thing they're going to see me do is cry. No. So I was like, okay, bye, guys, bye. And my parents left, and I just didn't get homesick at all because I was like, this is freedom. So I think I did neglect, you know, my family a little bit because I was just so happy to be in my own world, my own space, because even though it's in Texas, but it was just, that's my bubble, you know, like my family's not here. This is my time to just chill out and be normal, and no one's telling me to do anything, and I make decisions, and I'm grown, you know. So homesickness no. I'm very much an extrovert. So this is something I learned about myself in college. I'm very much an extrovert. So I lived in a dorm, had a roommate where we like had the same room. We shared the bathroom with another room of 2 people. Yeah. And then you have like the dorm floor, you know. So at first I was fine. I was like, this is fine. I'm an extrovert. This isn't like my worst nightmare. I'm chilling, you know. There's people around me everywhere. That's like a dream, you know. What was it? I think it's a border collie. Someone told me, someone I know has a border collie, and they told me border collies love to play. They run around in circles, and the thing is with border collie owners, you have to stop your border collie because they will have so much fun and excitement and not realize it, and then they'll have like a heart attack. So you have to stop them. And so after she said that, I was like, that's me. That's literally me. I feel like a border collie where I'm like, yeah, and I'm just having an exciting time, and God has to come and be like, stop for your own sake, like chill out. So I feel like that. So with that being said, you know, being around people was great. I was like, I love this. There's always someone down to do something because there's people everywhere. But, you know, then it was the first time I needed to cry, and I was like, I feel the tears coming, and I don't want anyone to see me. I can't go into my bathroom like someone's in there. My roommate's right here. I can't go downstairs. Like, where do I go? And there's a dining hall across the street, so I went to the dining hall, and they had a family restroom, so I just popped in there and, like, cried. Because I was like, I'm by myself. I can cry, and it's, like, no one's going to see. But that was a big thing I learned. I was like, wow, I'm an extrovert, but I need to be alone. Because it also, like, if you're around people all the time, even if you're an extrovert, it does drain you eventually. So I was like, wow, my social battery is not invincible, actually. I do need alone time, so I've learned to value my alone times. That's a really big thing I learned.
Wow, that's impressive that you learned it so early. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same. I am extroverted. I get along with people fine, but I think I prefer my alone time. I think I prefer, like, dude, I've been going to bed at like 3:30 a.m. because it's like my, you know, between the hours of 10 and 3:30, that's just kind of, and it's not like I'm like goofing off and watching YouTube videos. Like, I'm getting stuff done. Yeah. But I just, you know, I wouldn't say I'm a night owl either. I'm much more inclined to be an early bird, but like those are just the hours that have happened to work out where I get some alone time. Yeah. Where it's like, oh, I want to read this book right now, or like, you know, I want to make some pasta and eat it right now, but just for me. Yeah. That's like, yeah, that's important. And that's something that, like, we don't teach in schools here in Katy ISD, right? It's like everything's a group activity. Every single student, this might have been your experience growing up. It was for mine. Like, you know, how I don't know, good of a student you were was largely based on like how many extracurricular activities you did, you know? Yeah. And it's just like all these things, and no one gives a crap about like, all right, you know, who spends the most time alone? Like those are the weird kids. Those are the loners. Those are the kids who like end up like becoming serial killers or whatever. I'm like, no, like these are the kids who know the value of like being by yourself and with your thoughts. And I didn't grow up with a smartphone. I don't know if you have a smartphone, but like the idea of just like nothing. I think about it all the time, like when I'm pooping. Like if I'm just being straight up honest, you know, like when you're, you know, there, I used to do this thing where it's like, you know, if I'm using the bathroom, I'm going to put my phone away and that's it. And I'm just forced to sit, or like showering, you know, you're just forced to like be with your thoughts.
Yeah.
And you don't realize until you do something like that, like how just fast your brain's constantly going, and don't let your brain time to decompress. I was talking with Lena on the last episode of this podcast about this guy who wrote this book called Rest, and it's about like all these really leaders in their fields, Edison, Charles Dickens, all these guys who like are really creative and really productive, but a lot of their creativity or productivity happens because they spend a lot of time resting. But not like slouching on the TV, like in front of the TV, like that they actively resting. So like video games, or Winston Churchill, you know, great political leader, but he spent like hours painting every day. And it's just this idea of, you ever get stuck on something, like you have a problem that you're trying to figure out, but you can't figure out, and then you just kind of walk away, and then suddenly in the shower, you're like, oh, you know, that happens all the time for me in like interior design. Like, how should I rearrange my house for the 1,000th time, you know? And yeah, so like that idea of like having alone time, not just for your mental health, but also to process things and figure things out, like is so important. And it's so swept under the rug here, you know? We don't place any value in that. So yeah, that was a digression. But yeah, I'm glad you were able to find a family restroom to cry in. That's important. I'm sure you'll be able to use that same family restroom to cry in. Well, do you have roommates in your new apartment? It sounds like you're moving into a new apartment.
I have my own room.
Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah. Oh, I remember those days when it was like you got to man. When I went to UT Austin, and when I was in UT Austin, my apartment was $400 a person. Can you believe that? Does that sound expensive to you, or like?
No, that sounds really cheap.
It's amazing, right? I had a 3-bed, 3-bath apartment that I shared with 2 other people.
Nah.
It is $400 a month. I miss those days. But yeah, are you like working or doing any part-time work or anything like that?
No, not right now. But my friend is currently trying to help me become a TA right now. So we're gonna see how like a film TA.
Cool.
I did. The head of the department, he's the one that like ultimately makes the decision, but my friend, he works there, and so he'll be like, hey, like you should hire this person, or like da da da. And I've been trying to work there for like the past year, so I'm like, hire me. And last time, like my schedule just did not work with the times that they needed, so it didn't even matter. But he's currently trying to help me become a TA. And he was like, yeah, I mean, this guy just said he didn't like that you got a C in his class. And I was like, I can explain myself. Listen, I'm not a bad student.
So with everything that you're learning and what you are feeling called to some degree, like, how are you going to change the world?
Ooh, however God wants me to change the world, I guess.
Well, give me something specific. If you had to do something or name something right now, what would that be?
I think just doing worship, like what we do on Thursday nights, and doing that somewhere else. Like taking that side, like that's something I've really been feeling and like wanting to do, is just take this to San Marcos, which is where I go to school, because we don't have anything like that over there. There's no like weekly worship thing. There's no place for us if someone just wants to go and worship. We don't have a place. And if there's a worship night, there's like one worship night a semester, like this random church decided to do a worship night. Or there's this organization that does a worship night once a semester, but it's only once a semester, which is not a lot, especially when you're just in this environment where most people don't believe. And it's a blessing to be there, to be able to be somewhere where, like, great, I see you, God, like you put me here for a reason, you know? But it's also like, okay, it does get challenging on different levels when you're like, ooh, I'm surrounded by a completely different mentality. What I'm hearing 24/7 is completely different. What people are living, what I'm seeing is completely different 24/7. So I feel like it gets a lot easier to like kind of get lost in the wave and just kind of ride with what everyone else is doing, because it feels like it's everyone. And there's no, like, even if there's someone else, especially in theater and film, like even if there's someone else that does, you know, believe in God and would totally love to worship, you wouldn't know it, because it's not that many in a crowd of many.
Right.
So there's even the people that do believe in God, we don't even know, like, we're out there. So I've just learned, like, I had this one friend, we've been friends for 2 years, and I posted something on my Instagram, and then that's when she was like, you believe in Jesus? Me too. And we didn't even know. Like, we had no idea, and we've been friends for 2 years, and it's not really a topic that comes up. I'm like, why did I never have a conversation with her about anything that would have let me know this before,
right.
you know? But I'm glad I know now, and it just makes you realize, like, wow, we don't even have a space where we can find out, like, who even, like, hey, let's worship together, or someone that you can reach out to if you need prayer for. That was another, like, my freshman year, I was like, none of my friends believe in God, which I love my friends very much regardless, but it's just, I was like, I need prayer, I don't know where to go. Like, no one here, like, everyone be like, yeah, I'm not into that, you know? So I was like, I don't even know where to go. And thank God now, like, you know, I have friends that do believe in God, so it's like I don't feel as alone as I did my freshman year. But it was just like, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to go. So I know that there's people that feel like there's no one else, and I know that there's people that don't know that there's anyone else that believes in God, and it does feel kind of lonely in that aspect. You know, there's people everywhere. There will always be people to hang out with and talk to, and it's great. There's, you know, as an extrovert, I'm like, yes, I love people. Yes, this is my dream come true. You know, but when it comes to, like, I need prayer, you're like, none of my friends believe in God, so I don't know where to go. You know, I don't even know, like, where to go to church. I don't know any of this. You know, you don't know where to find community. So I'm like, let's just do it then. Like, let's do it.
That's so fascinating. So, I mean, I was very involved in theater as well. So Stephen Walker and I know each other because of theater. We junior high theater 20 years ago and going through high school. Yeah,
I didn't know
we
that.
were both comedy sports people. Sam Rude was also in comedy sports.
No way!
So at some point, Stephen, Sam, and I, because we're all very close in age, we all, you know, competed in comedy sports at some point. And we're like, we've literally been like digging through yearbook pictures trying to find like when Faith West and Singer Ranch competed. Yeah, it's pretty wild. So before I went to UT, I transferred to UT from USC. And USC, there was I guess you'd call it a group. It was like a medium large group called Artists in Action, and it was started by a couple of people who were all theater/film majors, and it was very geared towards the arts community, arts students, and who of faith. So like people who worked in creative. The creative industry, but also like we're believers. And that was really cool to see, because it was like, how are you going to let your faith impact your art, and how are you going to change people's, like, you have a different reason for doing what you do. And like, not to hate on like some of the corny Christian movies that come out, but like, you know, at the same time, it's like it's like you want to use your art as a vehicle to proclaim your faith. And I think more importantly, you are put into places and you build relationships with people that are unique to, I mean, like, you know, you understand the theater world, like there is nowhere else where you spend like 20 hours a week with people doing literally the same thing over and over, rehearsal, right? And it's like you form a very special, deep bond because of that. You have a shared task in that way, and where you have to be 100% or you let someone else down. Whereas in a lot of other, in the creative performing arts at least, and in a lot of other like vocations, like you can let an email slip by and it's fine. You know, you can let, but like, man, if you miss a cue on stage, then you mess it up for a lot of people. So USC, and what's really crazy is that one of the leaders of that group, Kimmy, shout out to Kimmy, she so this was like 2009. We kept in touch and whatever through the years. And so 6 years ago, I joined a band. I'm not sure if you know about this, but I joined a band from Hawaii. And like a couple of years ago, we're like playing in Hawaii, and like Kimmy shows up. I'm like, what? Turns out she's the cousin of one of the former members of the band that I joined. Like, but I didn't, like, who would have, made that connection, right? Small world. But anyways, like, it's really cool. And it's also really, I think interesting is the best word, because a lot of the people in that, I mean, like, lots of people in that group, eventually came out as gay.
Yeah.
Lots of people in that group eventually just, like, walked away. But it's like, that's not exclusive to creative people, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like creative in the theater world especially, there's a lot of judgment on like what kind of people these are. It's like, no, faith, people of faith don't work in that industry for a reason, people but I mean, I think that if Jesus were alive today and he had to take a secular vocation, I mean, either IRS or theater, like that's where it's at, right? That's where I feel that those are the kinds of people that he hung out with in a lot of ways. But my first internship in college, so after my freshman year of college, I worked at the Alley Theater as a sound engineer. And it was super fun. It was super cool. But I remember having a really deep conversation with a guy named Roger, who was the assistant sound engineer there, like the staff guy. But he was like a heavy alcoholic. But he was like my age now, mid-30s maybe.
Yeah.
And he ended up having like a come to Jesus moment, like something bad happened. And he, instead of drinking beer, because he would literally go through like cases of beer a day, he started drinking LaCroix, like the sparkling water.
Yeah.
So like every day, one of my jobs as the intern was to empty his recycling bin of LaCroix cans. But like that's a story, right? And that's like a connection and something that I'll always remember, just because I worked in the theater, just because like sometimes it takes when you're discipling someone, it takes if you're meeting once a week, it takes a long time to form a deep relationship and to get to like the nitty gritty. And I feel like because of my time because I work in entertainment, really, like you are forced to spend a lot of time with people in a very short time span.
Yeah.
And so you get to know them really deep, really fast. And I feel like that's something that I do. Like, I'm not afraid to just get to the core of like, what are you struggling with? And I feel like that's the same for you too. You are someone who can empathize really well, and I think people are willing to probably share their struggles, their hurts, and all of that with you, because they see that in you. And so I just want to encourage you, as someone who works in the entertainment industry, that maybe you're gonna have to be the one to be praying for a lot of people, and it's not so much the other way around, and that's okay. That's totally fine and cool. Yeah. What else do you want to talk about? What's the number one thing that you've been thinking about lately?
Lately is just what I'm doing this semester for school, because I head back on Friday, which is 2 days, 3 days. What day is today?
Oh, I don't even know.
Well, it's a couple days.
You know what? I don't have windows in here. I don't even know half the time what time of day
Don't
it is.
even worry. A few days from now, I go back to school. So I'm kind of seeing, okay, like this is what my classes are, but my classes are only ever like 40% of my schedule. The other 60% is other random stuff. And I'm like, oh, I said yes to this. I need to do that. Or like, I said yes to that. And I'm not the greatest at saying no to things. So I say yes to a lot of things. So I was like, okay, I'm going to work on that. Like, I'm not going to overcommit, because rest is important.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to chill out. But then I'm like seeing what I've already commit to. And I'm like, oh, I haven't even gotten there and I'm already stressed.
So how do you say no to someone?
Ooh, so when I say no to someone, it's usually like, I would love to. Like, I start with like, I would love to. Thanks for thinking of me. Thanks for reaching out. but I just can't. And then like I'll usually explain why. I don't like to tell people no just blatantly.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, it's not like I don't want to. Like it's just like, no, I have too much going on, or no, I have to be in Katy that weekend, or no, I'm in San Marcos that weekend. Like I will always give an explanation to be like, it's not you. You're
that's
not
so funny because it's like you're very real about it, and I feel like that's a really Gen Z thing. Like you want to spill the beans and just explain. For me, it's just like, no, I don't want to. And I mean, I see pros and cons to both ways of turning someone down. But yeah, that's really interesting. I if you can't tell, I've interviewed Olin on this podcast. I've interviewed Lena. Now I'm interviewing you from just as far as like the young adults go. And like, I'm just fascinated by your perspective on life. I'm 34, so I'm starting to feel the thing where, like, you know how sometimes you describe older people as like technological dinosaurs. It's like they just won't get or like a generational gap. It's like you just won't understand kind of thing. Yeah. And I'm starting to see that a little bit, but it's totally not what I would imagine it being. Like when I was younger. Like there were some things that my parents or like adult figures would say, and I'd be like, I don't understand why you're like thinking that way. And it's like, oh, you're such a bummer. But now, I can see someone like you or someone like Olin being like, oh, why are you holding back? Why aren't you being so free? Like, why don't you celebrate this freedom? And I'm just like, I don't have an answer to that question, like why am I not? So it's interesting because the difference in my relationship with my the previous generation, the relationship you have with my generation, I feel, is that for Gen Zers, it's much more of an encouraging thing, and for my generation, I feel like it was much more of a disparaging thing. Like it was like, you don't understand anything, you don't get it. But for you, it's like, check it out, there's so much here. So that's awesome. That's something I'm going to be thinking about for many days to come, I feel. Cool. Well, thank you for appearing on my podcast. I know it's kind of a misshapen setup, but
I love it. I'm a film major. I've seen a lot.
Oh yeah, this is great. It's gonna look so professional.
I love it.
But wow, you're awesome to talk to. Good luck with everything this semester and this year. Have a safe trip back to San Marcos. I hope your parents don't cry too much. But it's gonna be awesome. I know you're gonna do amazing, and you're gonna be a leader, and God's got you exactly where you need to be. So like, embrace that, take it, it's gonna be great. And we'll see you on the next episode of Grace at Night.